So, I'm seeing a recurring pattern with me. Um, I'm not very in touch with my feelings or whatever. Never really have been too much. Um, I can be super personable with people and stuff, but as soon as I'm away from them and I stop having to put on like, brighter or more, you know, polite tone and lifted spiritness or whatever, I shut down. I shut down a lot around people too, but I do it less because I am trying to do what's best for them, and what's best for other people is usually not you being shut down, but sometimes stuff's just hard enough that you shut down at least some of the way anyway. Um, and I'm used to not even thinking about it. Like I avoid thinking. When I do think, I get sad and bitter, and so I remember lamenting a lot when I was a teenager and when I was in my early 20s that I just couldn't stop thinking. And if I could just stop thinking, I would do so much better. And somehow I accomplished that. And the problem is me not thinking, or even me thinking but not being conscientious of everything below the neck. Um, I feel like I'm decently sure, like, about what I want when I can feel it. And then the rest of the time, my brain goes, well, what if? Well, what if? And some of it is what ifs that I've already, like, come to some sort of conclusion about. And then it's like second guessing the decision that I made, which I don't usually do. I usually make a decision and then just pursue it. Um, Once I've decided that something is a logical understanding. So, you know, like, it's strange to me because my entire life has been a series of me just accepting circumstances, and those circumstances and the acceptance of them just causing me to be defeated instantly, and I just accept this is how it is and I deal with it. And I am not accepting my own circumstance, like my internal one, which is strange for me because I accept every other circumstance that's external. If, stuff's not going right, I get frustrated for about 2 minutes and then, all right, let's deal with it. It's done. It's a done deal. Let's fix it. Or even while I'm upset for those 2 minutes, already working on it. I'm the kind of person that if I get excited about something and then it doesn't happen, if it falls through for some reason, I'm devastated. Just completely devastated. Um, so then I just start working. And sometimes you can tell how depressed I am by how hard I'm working. Um, the more I'm doing stuff that just takes care of things for everybody, the more upset I am, probably a majority of the time, like 70% of the time. Sometimes I'm just doing chores because that's the requirement and that's what needs to get done, and it's not necessarily because I'm very upset about it. It's just the depressing reality of this needs to happen. Um, I've been told a lot, in my life that I'm a, a good worker by jobs, um, and, that I have a good work ethic. I always show up on time. I always do a good job when I'm there. Like, I have this quality that a lot of you know, employers want. Um, and I usually impress, I guess, at workplaces. Once I'm hired, I do my best, and I don't know. The employers are always pleased with that or whatever. Even the time I got quote unquote asked to quit because I was gay, um, that was pretty much fired, but I got asked to quit. Even then, my boss sat down and was like, "Is there any way that we can try to figure out a way to work around this or to change this? Because, you're a good worker and I try to give you some leeway and let you, you know, um, go to your volunteer hours." Because at that point I was still volunteering with children pretty heavily and stuff, and everything. And, have you have like a little bit of free will because you always get everything done that you're supposed to, and you're a good worker, and I know that this is really hard and everything. And I was just like, I don't want to fight the man. I don't. It is what it is. I just accepted it. But you know it was his bosses that had a problem with me. It wasn't him, was what he was trying to say, and I appreciated that. He was honestly the best boss I ever had. um I I don't hate people for hating me for being gay or whatever. I just think they're pitiful. I feel pity for people who are that close-minded and ignorant about functionality, um, of the human race. Like, is what it is with that. But anyway, back to the original point. I keep coming back to the same things. I accepted giving up, like gay culture to have now trans culture, but I don't know, there's like this rift in the trans culture that I'm really not excited to be involved in or a part of. And some of my trans friends swear up and down you don't have to pick a side, you can be a middle person. The two sides are actually minorities that are just really vocal against each other, and yet there's universally this acceptance even from the middle ground people that there's like a war in the trans community. And it's ridiculous because the trans community is so tiny and not very accepted. And it's like, so you're going to waste time not accepting each other. And the biggest thing that I hear from both sides is, "Oh, well, because of you, the rest of the world, this is why they don't, respect us. This is why they don't accept us, because of your behavior right now." And it's like, no, they don't accept us because the majority of humans are assholes, when it comes to accepting something different than themselves. Um, and some of that's just like a fearful reflex. It's not malicious. I genuinely believe that. A ton of people who don't accept change just are afraid of change. I don't think that they're trying to intentionally harm, but they don't stop even once they realize it's harmful because they're too scared. And I understand that that's not okay, but I also understand a lot of people do that. And then there are some people who are just outright malicious and they're like, "Ugh," and it is what it is with those people. They exist, whatever. Um, but I'm not excited to join in with the trans community the way that I was with the lesbian community. And I still get excited when I see lesbian characters like in a show or in a video game, or I'm like, "Yay, go cute little, you know, old couple who, you know, are just a little old married couple, but you happen to be girls. Like, good for you. Like, I realize that it's not crazy for a dude to like lesbians. Like, obviously, there are plenty of dudes who like lesbians, but I feel like it's in like full on creepy ways for the most part. And it feels foreign to me to say I like lesbians because I used to be one, but I wasn't. I know that I wasn't, nor do I actually like prefer, lesbian intercourse. I always have had issues with it and always wanted to be the guy, and the girls want to be a girl with a girl, and so that has made things complicated before. I know I've always had issues, and yet at the same time, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for lesbians. I am going to be a strange guy who gets excited for lesbians or even women in non creepy ways. And just because of being a man, that might become creepy. And I don't know what to do about it. I have a soft spot. I do. Um, for women. I I've always made a point of building women up. When I've been part of like LGBT plus communities in the past, I've, flirted with all the trans girls and the other girls, no matter what kind of girl, just telling them they're beautiful and telling them, oh, look who's here, it's so awesome, and stuff. Try to build them up because women get treated like shit a lot of the time. And then I feel like women need building up. And I realize that there's men in the world who need building up. I've met a bunch of them, and I do try to encourage them that they're doing a good job with things and stuff. But you know, bringing some dude under your wing and treating him like a little brother or whatever isn't the same as every single woman I meet. I'm like, a gentleman towards or whatever. Um, I just I want to validate them and I want to help them not have image issues and I want to help them feel good about themselves. And if I'm a dude, that's going to come off a lot more creepy. And that makes me sad. I've already accepted that I'm a dude. And yet, when I don't feel it as strongly, I wonder, well, am I making stuff up? Well, you know, how much dysphoria is real dysphoria? Um, the big one is, well, you can be non binary and have gender dysphoria. And it's like, well, maybe you should just stay non binary. Why go through all of this? Because it is a lot to go through. And at the same time, it's like, as soon as I have feelings again, it's very clear to me. It's very straightforward to me. And I feel like I'm going in circles slightly. And maybe that will resolve itself when I'm doing therapy once a week. Maybe that will resolve itself when I am, going to like a trans support group. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm isolated with myself so much, and my own thoughts. I don't know. But I have all these little irky, annoying doubts about things. And the girls are pretty positive about it. Like, honestly, my spouse, she before we got married, I did bring it up once, and stuff, and she was very vehemently against it, and she feels bad about that now. But at the same time, I've never been mad at her for that. Um, a lot of terrible things have happened to her because of men in her life, and I don't blame her for that. The other thing is my spouse is special needs. My spouse has a ton of health issues, and I've always been nurturing and taking care of her and stuff. And I always say we saved each other's lives. Um, I helped save her, and she helped save me, and I appreciate that. So I can't be upset with her for a fear that was completely logical for why she was afraid of that. And I also can't be upset with her for being afraid of change when she's already used to me one way, when literally um, more than one of her disorders involves being afraid of change. Like, you can't control illness. So, I don't think she should feel bad for it, but she's trying to be very accepting now, which I appreciate. And then our girlfriend, I think somehow she noticed very early on in the relationship somewhere, and over the years, because we have all been in a relationship for years. Um, well, we broke up for a little bit and at one point, but we got back together again. Um, it's I've seen before, um, quite a bit in trans situations that there's this repeated thing. I just needed one person to be okay with it. And then once one person was, I was okay. And you're supposed to get validation from internal stuff, but I just needed that one person. I hear that over and over again. Um, and even in like the YouTube videos and stuff, people say that. They're just like, what? There was this one person who finally stopped, like, you know, rejecting the idea and was okay with it, and suddenly I was fine. Um, I I think our girlfriend was that for me because, like, pretty early on, she was trying to pick out a pet name for me because I have pet names for them, and girl ones didn't sound right. They didn't fit, so she ended up with a boy pet name. Um, a masculine one. She asked me if I wanted her to call me he, him, and I was just like, the same thing I tell everybody all the time. Call me whatever you want, I'll answer to whatever. I usually go by she, her because it's easier for all my family and everything. And so, my girlfriend was like, okay. And, like, as far as sex goes, me wanting to be more masculine has been, for the most part, pretty accepted. Even, I would say most of my masculine tendencies, period, have been very encouraged. Over the years, it's just been this gradual, hey, I'm stealing your shirt because I want to smell your pheromones like a girl steals the letter jacket in high school. I was just like, I didn't go to high school, so whatever. I mean, I graduated high school with 4.0 for all 4 years because I had to. I was required to, but I was also not in a high school when I did that. Um, it's long, complicated stories I have no interest in explaining. Um, right now. The point is there's just been this gradual acceptance, and when I have brought up, oh, I thought about transitioning before, she was like, well, if you need to, and I'd just be like, oh, no, 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 everybody shut it down, don't worry, it's fine, and she's all like, well, if you need to, and I'm just like what? Because it's so foreign. If I want to get something that's more masculine, that's okay. Or if I don't, that's okay. And it's very different than the rest of my life where everything's always been shut down as soon as I showed an interest in it. She's been saying for a couple years now that she wants to take me to go get a suit. She thinks I'd look really hot in like an actual fitted suit and stuff. I was just like, oh, I don't know what to do with that because it's it's foreign to me to be accepted, and it's taken years of her accepting to even consider. And honestly, what it was for some reason this came up on my feed, this thing in YouTube. Again, I already knew about that trans guys existed. I already knew that it was such a thing, and I already knew, you know, that I had shut that down, um, and that it was never gonna happen. And my YouTube feed was basically a bunch of like comedy vids mixed with a Nike's ton of video gaming vids, like so much. What new games were coming out, what was the population ratings for these MMORPGs, what is going to be, the games coming out when, like, here's this, my personal experience with this game, like tons and tons of gaming videos. Um, and for some strange reason, mixed in with all of that, was this video, and I don't know why. And it was of a trans guy talking about his bottom surgery, and he only got a metoidio, anyway, however you enunciate that, metoidio to placid plasty, something like that. Which is not what I would be interested in. But still, it was like, oh, and then the next one was about phalloplasty, but it wasn't from him because he didn't do that, but still. And I was like, wait, what? Um, I realize it's ignorant and I never looked it up because I have so much dysphoria about it. So I've never looked it up. Just avoided it because avoiding it was what I trained myself to do. Um, I thought, if a trans man wants a penis, I guess they do like a transplant from guys who die and donate their organs, and maybe they donate their penis, and some little trans boy somewhere gets his new penis. That's what I thought, and I'm not saying that's impossible, but that's pretty ignorant, and I didn't want someone else's penis, and I didn't want to look it up, so my bad. Um, but I'm not mad at past me. Every once in a while I think, man, if only I'd done this sooner. And then the rest of me is like, yeah, but past me was just as desperate and depressed as I am now. Past me was not in a better place than I am now. Past me was probably in a worse place than I am now. Like, past me had way too much to deal with way too little information, and was just trying to do the best that past me knew how to do. And I can't be angry at myself. If anything, I have compassion for myself in the past. But, yeah, realizing that I could have my own skin and my own tissue and my own nerves. Like, it's a big deal to me. It's a really, really huge thing for me. And part of getting it is a hysterectomy, which I've wanted forever. Um, and I could hopefully have one there instead of just having this phantom one that's been there since I was a teenager. And like, I can feel it there right now, even though I know there's not one there. And it's the reason I'm metoid. I'm just gonna say metoid. Um, one, the reason it wouldn't work for me is because I can feel it there, and bottom growth doesn't get big enough to be the size of the one that I can feel, and the one that I can feel is not a massive like porn one or something like um but it is, you know, there. And I what is the point of getting your penis made into correct shape and everything if you still have phantom limb syndrome basically with it for the other half of it? Like, I don't want, you know, half or you know, of what I feel there already. Like, that would make it worse. I think that that would make my dysphoria worse. Or like, you know, my girlfriend was like, well, what, you can just settle, you know, for whatever phalloplasty is easiest. And I'm like, but I can't do that because then that averages out to 5 inches, and I basically will be missing a full inch. And so then I just have this phantom inch hanging off of the end that doesn't make sense. Like, and I don't know, maybe bottom growth will help, or maybe it will make it worse. I'm a little scared of that. I, on the one hand, desperately want it, and on the other hand, I'm so scared because I have phantom limb syndrome issues with having a penis already. So, again, I'm so scared of things getting worse. I've been trying to look at myself in the mirror and in pictures, and it's just really hard. Because I'm like so separated from the person that's in them. So separated from them. I keep thinking of all the wonderful things about transitioning, that if I could, oh my gosh, just a hysterectomy, even just that. would be this massive relief. And for the rest of my life, it would be just this massive relief. And I'd never have to deal with it again. And when I have feelings, it's like so obvious and straightforward and simple, and I know I'm gonna shut down again, and then I'm gonna doubt again, and then I'm gonna be. It's frustrating. I'm frustrating myself. Bad or unfortunate things happen in real life, and I'm just like, okay. And then something bad or unfortunate happens with me, and I'm just like, and I'm part of real life too. And I somehow need to tap into that so that I can get on with my life. And again, hopefully, that will be a natural result of going ahead and doing therapy once a week or something. I don't know how I am so good at critical thinking with everything that's external, and then it comes to me, and it's just like mindfulness goes out the window. it's I am a strange dynamic. I had an ex-girlfriend once who said I was the strangest thing. I was somehow at the same time the most confident and yet the most insecure person she had ever met in her life. And I was like, I understand that completely. I totally get that. Made absolute sense. I'm not to the point in this process where I'm like excited or something. I don't know if I will get fully excited because, again, if I get excited and something goes wrong, I'm going to be devastated. So there's like this big hammer waiting to fall and smash me. And I'm trying to work through to what I know I need and not be a coward about it. But the whole point of bravery is you're doing it because you're scared. Or, well, in spite of being scared. It's not bravery if you're not afraid of it in the first place. So, whatever. For some reason, that doesn't really help. um, but I know in the long run, I'll do whatever I have to be able to look down and see what I already feel there every single day of my life. I used to hope when I was younger, I used to hope that they would like do some sort of ultrasound on me or something, and they never did. But I would hope for it, or like a full body scan or something. Um, I used to hope for it so bad, and the only things they've ever taken X-rays of are like, your teeth at the dentist, or when I kept getting sick when I was young, they did X-rays in my chest to try to find what was going on with it and stuff. Um, Looking for, scar tissue from all the pneumonias and stuff. That's it. I always hoped that they would take an X-ray down below and be like, "Oh wow, you're intersex." I used to hope for that. but they never did. And if they did, it's not actually likely or anything that I would be. It's just me being hopeful. I used to I used to hope for a lot of things like that would make it easier to convince my family and to convince myself, I think. Stuff that would be like, oh, look, see, here's this excuse, here's this explanation, here's this thing. And I always wanted it to be that instead of just that I'm transgender. Because transgender has such a giant, massive stigma about it for like all these different cultures and groups, even minority groups. Like there's all this stuff. And I do not begrudge. I am not in any way bitter about a single person who transitions and then goes into stealth. Completely understand it. I don't think I could do it, even though part of me, a very big part of me, would want to. I don't think I could. I don't know, though. Maybe I would. I feel like I've spent my entire life fighting. People are like, oh, America's messed up, sure, but stay here and fight. Why do you want to go to another country? And why do you want to go to another country so freaking bad? I'm tired. I don't want to fight for America to be better because it's going to take my entire lifetime minimum. I don't want to fight my whole life for that. I don't have the energy. And honestly, even when I was a small child, I was never proud to be an American. I mean, I don't hate America enough to ever do anything bad to it or an American or anything like that, but I've never actually wanted to be here. Like, I was born in Alaska, why couldn't I have been born in Canada? Like, the principles and ideals here are based on such completely outdated and fearful views. It's not progressive. It's not going to bring humanity to any kind of a good place. Like the overall structures here just don't fit the way that I think. I want the world to be more like it was in Star Trek. And it could be. That's the saddest part, is it already could be if people would just stop clinging to stuff simply because that's how they did it before. But people are scared of change, just like, my spouse was scared of change when I brought up transition before. I don't hate people for being scared of change. It's just exhausting. I don't want to be raising adults all the time. I don't want to be parenting all these grown adults who should already know better. And it's not my fault that their parents didn't teach them something better. It's not my fault that they isolate themselves with only a couple of sources of information and then think everyone else has bought into it. That they magically, without any training other than having Googled a couple of times, know the secret, better way, the right way, that somehow everything else is a conspiracy. It's such a fearful way to live. I don't want to fight it. I just genuinely don't have the energy. And maybe that makes me a terrible person to some degree, I don't know. I try to do my best to treat every person with dignity when I come across them, and be as polite and friendly and kind as I can be, to be supportive and uplifting. But I spend almost no time around other people in public situations. And maybe I'd make the world a better place if I did more, because I do that, but I just don't have the energy. Other people exhaust me too much. I think that's what's frustrating me the most, is I'm exhausting myself by being fearful, by having been raised with all these misogynistic, horrible, completely backwards ideals. And I know that they're not true completely and totally, and yet they still pop up simply because it was ingrained in me so much. And I am filled with grief at the way that indoctrination happened to some of my younger siblings. And yet at the same time, I have to accept that I was indoctrinated somehow, at least partially. And I'm trying to deal with that. I'm trying really hard. And maybe that's the only reason I'm having issues. I don't think so. Usually when something's wrong, I try to get to the root of the problem. And sometimes it's multiple things. A lot of times it's multiple things. There's not just one core thing wrong. There's several. I need to somehow get more in touch with my feelings about things. To untrain myself. This whole process is so exhausting. I just, I just want the world to be better, but I can't control that. And I want me to be better. And you would think I could control that. I'm trying to get there. I'm trying my best. Anyway, I'm done being a weepy mess for today. Gonna go exercise. Rah!